Hi, Iris. How are you?
Hi Amany. Good to see you. I'm so excited to present with you today.
Good to see you too. I'm Amany Alkhayat. I'm the CEO of Language Cities, and I'm also an instructional designer and a voice user interface designer. I'm here to share with you some of my research results. And this is Iris, my chatbot. Hey,
So I want to start by asking you a question first. Why is your session
okay.
called Not Like Siri?
Yeah, because when we design virtual assistants, they differ according to the learner's needs, especially in educational contexts. And so I'd love to know from you your opinion.
There are many factors in designing virtual assistants like me. For example, what is the problem you are trying to solve? So in this context, we're talking about education. And so the learner is looking for a teacher's persona as someone reliable, gives feedback, gives
Yeah, that's right.
advice, examples, didactic. Learners view coaches or educators as ones who always give advice and start the conversation with questions and give feedback.
Yeah. So you mentioned before something like service clues. What do you mean by that and how they affect the user?
So as you know, Amany, there's a difference between functional, mechanic, and humanic clues that make up the service experience. Functional means like service integration and interaction. Mechanic refers to how the interaction is taking place, like text-based, voice-based, which may affect the user on an emotional level and cause delight or frustration. They are like the sensory presentation of the service, including whatever the consumer can perceive with their senses. Finally, humanic clues refer to personification, adaptivity, whether the avatar is customized or not, controlling point, in terms of who guides the service interaction, the consumer or the avatar. For example, these factors affect certain elements of interaction: pragmatic, which means ease of use, satisfaction, and hedonic elements, which means trust, social presence and rapport, likability and engagement. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about designing chatbots for educational contexts, so I pass it over to you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, what you've mentioned is really true. And I'm going to put the link to the research paper and other research papers that talked about uh, engaging either customers or, and I usually depend on research from the industry because it's very rich and it gives me more information about how to apply that in terms of education. And so I would like to add to what you said in terms of like when we start designing chatbots for whatever purpose that we have. So, for example, so when we focus on education, which is the focus of um, our talk today, we need to pay attention to many factors. So, when we start actually developing a chatbot, we think of it from a voice user interface design. So, we build the empathy map. We interview people, like students, for example, learners, so as to create the learner persona, and then we create the chatbot persona depending on our findings. And because in order to understand how to create the chatbot persona, we have to understand the learner first and what are their needs, the pains and gains, and what do they see and what do they feel. And usually we design that so that they can assist the teachers. And also we need to inhibit the affective filter in many cases because students are usually they have many students they have anxiety, they are reluctant to participate. So we kind of design that so that they can be some kind of a simulation or an interaction with the learners. And so there are many factors like the age of the learner, the individual differences are also another factor in learning styles. So it's not only the visual auditory, but also we can also tactile. It also includes emotional and social aspects. Also, one of the most important things is learning objectives. And so when we design chatbots, sometimes we may not have a learning objective. It's just an assistant that provides a certain service. But in terms of designing chatbot for education, there are also the learning objectives. What are the learning objectives that we are trying to meet? So we can design a teaching or a coaching method that matches the students' characteristics. Teaching methods used by the teachers. So we can see, okay, so what are the teaching methods used by a specific teacher so that we can use the same teaching method or probably other teaching methods that would complement the teacher style. And so the other factor was, which is the tone of voice, the chatbot personality, of course. And one of the things that I found out is that, as you said before, didactic, gives advice, gives examples, and examples can be in terms of photos, in terms of videos, and something that can align with the personality traits of the students, um, um, and also the language background of the student, the educational level, grade level, and what are the educational requirements of the students, the classroom environment, what is the classroom environment. um, uh, Also, there are other factors like emotional states. So how can we, what is the tone of voice of the chatbot that could align with the student's needs and the emotional state. So also the social status of students, giving examples in terms of culture, how can we make it culturally relevant, um, and also the level of knowledge of the student. And so we always talk about the schema theory, for example, how to understand the student's prior knowledge and how to scaffold through using chatbots, and whether the students are motivated or not. And so in certain cases, sometimes chatbots can be gamified so that they can motivate students. And so these factors were said briefly today about the how we can design chatbots that actually can be motivating for the students and interactive so that we they can achieve the learning objectives, and so they can be motivated to learn more and they can interact because they are motivated to interact and they like the way the chatbot is designed. And by saying so, I mean that if we think of starting like the happy path only without understanding the students' needs, so we have to reconsider that and we have to interview students, look at the interactions, examples of interactions from that specific class, for example, or specific lecture, so that we can design something that can be appealing to the students. And thank you so much.